program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to Mapping 101 Thursdays live edition, 31st episode. And I do apologize for the technical errors that have occurred last week due to the dead air, whereas I have forgot to unmute the microphone all over the StreamYard. But of course, if you have noticed that last week, there's a Mapping 101 emergency that has been occurred before we have to make an emergency edit for the southwestern part of Dasmarinas City, which is the Langkanto, aka Humayaw. And of course, due to the series of last week's flooding that got occurred within the parts of Lopez in Quezon province and even in Ginayangan, whereas most of the motorists got into let me say, locally stranded individuals due to the flooding within the Highway 1, AH26, also known as the Pan-Philippine Highway, and it has been fixed in the middle of the emergency. Kanda Ibaba got affected surely. And yes, of course, if this would happen, that any parts of the highway got flooded, yes, of course, it would be a big no-no to pass through at the flooded state. And as you can see on this cycle map, there are varying elevation, whereas the 50 is shown, and if it gets dropped way below 10 meters, it's a dangerous zone already, and you have to be evacuated to the higher ground. But of course, you might need to take care of ourselves to avoid some sort of landslide. And maybe this one, this central one, could be used as an evacuation route here in order to avoid such flooding. And to those who are going to travel to and from Bicol and Metro Manila, and even parts of Quezon province, particularly Lucena City, if there would be such weather forecasting that would cause heavy rains or torrential rains, then you have to postpone the travel. Going back to Dasmarinas City. If you're wondering on why I have received some sort of before I proceed to the southwestern part of Dasmarinas City, on why I have kept receiving such direct messaging service, well, of course, the only communication to online is the direct messaging services. especially if you're using Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also with the OpenStreetMap, likewise that you might need to send some sort of messages that I have received, but lately, upon the validation from one of our partner OpenStreetMapper, Dasmarinas_mapper on OpenStreetMap, that this one parts of Umayaw got incorrectly rendered into parts of Silang wherein it shouldn't be this case. So let's have some sort of fix your city segment of the Mapping 101 Thursdays. And yes, of course, if you're going to edit such boundaries or bus routes, I would rather recommend you to use the Java OpenStreetMap editor, in which I would show it to you in a bit. But yes, of course, we have to be very careful in mapping those boundaries. And say, for example, let's switch to the Java OpenStreetMap editor. As far as I'm concerned with the editing styles that I have got into this wonderful software that uses the Java runtime environment, in which basically it is required to install. Say, for example, if you're going to have some revisions of tags or memberships, layers, selection, and even the relations, validation results, map or paint styles, and even the resolving conflicts, filter, notes, minimap, everything else, including the authors, change sets, indoor mapping helper, even the mapillary image, measured values, turn restrictions, Wikipedia, Wikidata info, junction checking, change set viewer, and even turn lanes and geo chat. Of course, without further ado, let's open this problematic boundary on the southwestern part of Dasmarinas City. It may take a while to load since there are so many objects that needs to be loaded as well. And for your information, there are some sort of legalities when you're going to map or draw such boundary lines, and I hope that most of the OpenStreetMap friends would respond to the ticket 76 of the paper cut fix and say, this one is the line for the General Trias City and Silang. However, we have found that there are incorrect boundary lines. This one is a stream wherein it shouldn't be placed here in this case. Of course, we have to make some sort of adjustments here. Maybe we could draw a line here. And there you go. The fourth and the fifth has to be recalibrated as well. And we have to cut this part of the waterway, which could be more like of the Ilang River. Well, let's have this named as Ilang River. And well, there are some instances wherein missing river names would be encountered here. So let's have to name it as Ilang River. And by the way, this one is... Wait. If this one is the Ilang River, then it should be mapped alongside with the boundary for the city of Dasmarinas, and not this one. This and this has to go. Dasmarinas and Silang has to go. The fourth and the fifth, nope. Sixth, nope. I'm not so sure about what would it be the outcome, but let me check this one. Most likely this and this has to go. And so without further ado, let's have a single operation. This has to be cut also into two separate ones. This and... Oops! We have a problem here. If this one is the part of Dasmarinas City and other is CNNPH City, we have to be very careful. We have to outline these corrected ones. This and this. Or should we download the whole relation part into one complete unit? We have detected a gap, but of course we have to be very careful. But I think there's something wrong here. This and this Ilang River has to go. And there you go. The fifth district is hereby corrected. I'm not sure if what this would be meant, But of course, let's zoom in for further analysis. It might be the case of, the overlap boundary line, but let's set aside this one so that we could edit this properly. This and this. Oops! It's not in here. Maybe let's download this one further. So this one's if this the admin center, we have to avoid such practice. Nope. Let me check this one. This one could be the incorrect borderline. And I'm wondering on why there is a gap here wherein it shouldn't be in this case. So let's have some sort of fix your city here. Maybe there is something wrong on the boundary relation that got previously undetected. Maybe if you're the map editor or the Java OpenStreetMap editor that is being used to edit some sort of boundary line, of course, I would like you to reiterate this one, that any changes to the boundary data has to undergo a plebiscite. As always, if there's no plebiscite, then we should not modify such boundary data. And of course, we have to be very careful on mapping those boundaries, as this would lead us into some sort of fines and even jail time. And of course, let me go to in-depth correction of these lines here, whereas it shouldn't be here in this case. And say, for example, if you're going to extend the line and get rid of those unwanted elements, you have to make sure that those existing data could not interfere in any way. This one is the ID equals 0. Maybe we should merge it safely. And yes, of course, we have to keep all of this. Press apply if you're done. I would rather validate this with the Maxar imagery and as far as I'm concerned, if this one is Dasmarinas City, this one is General Trias City, and this one Silang, there would be some sort of disputed land areas or boundaries that needs to be resolved as soon as possible. And in that case, we have to monitor for the latest developments. And unfortunately, our Java OpenStreetMap editor got hanged, but now it's working already. And most of you will ask me a question like this. This and this could be more of Ilang River. This one is a stream, this one is a river. It's Ilang River. Of course, we have to be very careful on mapping such boundary data. And there's identified disputed area, which is the International Institute for Rural Reconstruction, whereas it has to be, let me remove those others, only the street, and the province, and let me note of this one. Northern part of IIRR is under the jurisdiction of the city of Dasmarinas. Yes, of course. This one should be downgraded into wall. Of course, don't forget that the material used for the wall is assumed to be a concrete, and I'm not 100% sure of what could it be the northern part of the IIRR would mean. Start. But anyways, I'll not comment on this one. But yes, of course, there's a need for of course, this one is under the dispute. I'm not 100% sure of what would it be the result of the mapping if I would exclude this portion on purpose? If this one is the 4th district, the lone district of the city of Dasmarinas, maybe I'll remain this one as is. Silang has to be removed. And here's one of my concerns. If once the particular city or municipality, just like the case of the urban-wide Metro Manila, goes into the levels of enhanced community quarantine on a strict level, which got occurred last March, and a certain area is also under the jurisdiction of a particular city or municipality, whereas the International Institute for Rural Reconstruction, the northern part goes to Dasmarinas City and the southern part goes to Silang, then which government would follow? Then it's a conflict already. And yes, of course, this and this has to be modified as well. If this silang has to be edited, this, and this, and this. And also this 5th district. This, and this. And as such, let me check once again this. Or maybe rotate this. There's a problem already. If I could analyze this one, Then, we have to make some sort of readjustments as soon as possible. And such differences, maybe we should convert this into retaining wall instead of the usual wall. Then the remaining would be walled itself. And let's analyze this. Of course, we should be very careful on mapping those walls. And if in case you have to split, then the role-based relation with membership has to be copied automatically. Besides, if these two are the river, this should not be a walled one, as this would obstruct the riverway. Then, this one is also a riverway. Maybe there's a need for some sort of retaining walls in order to prevent all sorts of erosion and landslide. But of course, we have to take this into consideration. If this one is the alleyway, well, this one should not be mapped. Oops! Ayan. Of course, it's too hard to rectify those errors here. And maybe the people should be corrected also in order to avoid some sort of further boundary issues. This and this would be merged. And see. I'm not 100% sure if this one is correct or not. But I'm 100% sure that the whole Humalaw is part of the city of Dasmarinas. And if you're going to map those rivers, don't forget to split up if there would be some sort of branches like this in order to prevent or avoid such erratic data that would further complicate the mapping. The tributary has to be corrected likewise. And so we have to make sure that everything is true and correct. This one is of irregular shape. And I don't like this to happen. And so, without further ado, let's have this one corrected as well. And yes, you're right. You have to redefine the boundary if in case of such errors or omissions that needs to be further corrected. This part of the Cavite Laguna Expressway would just cross Dasmarinas City. But however, if there would be some sort of a plans to have some sort of another freeway from west to east, then I would like to welcome it in this case. But the truth is, it is hard to map out all of these boundaries if you don't know how to execute it, in which it could be in accordance to the Republic Act 9723, the Cityhood of Dasmarinas law. And before I conclude on this episode, let's have some sort of the uploads. And let's switch it first into the OpenStreetMap for the before and the after comparison. And well, you're still watching Mapping 101 Tuesdays, and you can see it is still black screen. Of course, the browser got not responding. Let's go back to the Java OpenStreetMap editor. Let's ignore these errors here. And there would be some sort of problems, incomplete multi-polygon relations. Let's be careful here. And the fifth district is okay. Everything's fine. And I'm not 100% sure if this one belongs to General Trias City or Silang Town. But but the nearest access is at the General Trias City, which could be also a rough road. And we have to avoid erratic mapping of such riverways or river tributaries. This one is assumed to be Ilang River. Okay, let's download further south. Of course, it would be more like of the Ilang River tributaries. Okay, let's upload it further. And everything is verified except for the overlapping ways that needs to be addressed very soon once it got detected. Depreciated tagging has to be fixed also. I'm wondering where are these overlapping ways are coming from, in which it must not be supposedly. Let me change the source into RA9723. Okay, let's try to change the by the way, it is part of the paper cut fix 076. Of course, it is southwestern Dasmarinas, major emergency fix. And I'm very confident that everybody should be well aware of about those conflicts coming from, especially on the boundary disputes. And well, say for example, that the analysis has to be done very carefully, and unfortunately, my Chrome got into unresponsive manner. I'm not sure if StreamYard would work as well. But here's one thing. If there would be some sort of disputes, don't forget to send me some messages to the OpenStreetMap channel, or should I say, send me the direct messaging all over DP24PH in order for me to fix it right away. This one is Sumayaw, and I'm wondering on what could it be the... Wait! We have some sort of erratic mapping data here. Missing driveways and even the rough road. Let's split this into two. Oh my goodness me. It has to be mapped very carefully on what should it be. Let's analyze this further, and it seems that it's a rough road here. So let's split this into two. This one must be a surface ground. And there you have it. There's a rough road here. And yes, of course, this one is a tape edition, meaning to say that there would be some sort of changes to the episode setting, And if in case of course, let's cut this into two parts. Still a ground, this, and this, and this. Let's have a curvature. And there you go. Let's merge it with the ground. And I'm not 100% sure if this will be okay to map further north. Let's assume that it's a dirt road already, or a track. And there you go. This one is a stream. This, oops, this, and this should be mapped as the residential and ground. This one is no longer a ground. The shrubbery is a concrete road. Maybe it's a track. Oh my goodness me. Let's have to extend further northwards. And there you go. And still, this one is a farm or plantation. And well, still technically a rough road. This is also a rough road. Then we have to map also this one. And by the way, if you're going to add some sort of fixes, Then you have to analyze it further down into the ground level, and please make sure that everyone else is well informed on what we're going to do. And let's switch further down into the OpenStreetMap window. And there you have it. This one is the incorrect part. Let's refresh this and let's see what this would going to happen. There you have it. Another refresh. And there you go. Missing truck road has been added already. And let's have a further polishing touches of the site. Oops! We're having some sort of technical issues here. Let's have to start this one, the OpenStreetMap window. Maybe I have misclicked something else, but don't you worry. If this would happen, I'll quickly switch into camera mode, but anyways, there you go once again. And it's already a full hour of this episode, which could be a take one. Hopefully, this would clear some up on the erratic boundaries that needs to be redone. And also, it's under the paper cut fix 76. And we're not so sure if which boundary line could be drawn here for the IIRR, in which it's obviously the gate is at the Silang. Technically, it's under the northern part is under the jurisdiction of Dasmarinas City. Hopefully, further discussions on the paper cut fix episode will commence, as this would be needed to be remapped. And we're going to refresh refresh everything in order for us to have the correct rendering. This one is Dasmarinas City, this one is Channel TSCB, and this one Silang. I'm not 100% sure if Kasuyan is also a part of Channel TSCB, so please stay tuned to Mapping 101 Thursday's episode for further Fix Your City mapping fixes. And this is your one and only Dupo speaking. So let's go back to the studio. Hello and good evening. And we're back to DP24 base studio here. And as you can see earlier, it's the emergency mapping 101 session in which the whole southwestern and southern parts of Dasmarinas City needs to be fixed right away. And besides that, on the fix has been issued following the DM request from our partner mapper, Dasmarinas_mapper. Thank you so very much for your generous effort in mapping those street names. And as far as I'm concerned, there should be a series of validation tests that is very needed right now. And besides, Mapping 101 Thursdays will continue to monitor for the latest developments. And by the way, breaking news tonight, all cemeteries nationwide are closed following the regulation to curb the spread of COVID-19. And that tropical cyclone have entered the Philippine area of responsibility, and residents are now warned to brace for the stormy weather for the following 3 days. And yes, of course, that concludes Mapping 101 Thursdays. Thank you so very much for tuning in. And before I let you go, please make sure that the Java Open Street Map Editor and Java Runtime Environment are updated as well. So thank you so very much. Special thanks to the city government of Dasmarinas for not only the city scholarship program but also the services offered to all people with disabilities. And yes, of course, special thanks to OpenStreetMap community, OpenStreetMap Foundation, and also mental health awareness. Special thanks also to Equest, Elevate Coaches, Team G Coaches, Evolution Coaches. And as such, I have so many learnings and inspiration that needs to be shared to all of you, my dear friends. And next week, it would be retimed already into 2000 hours instead of the usual 1900, especially on the mapping 101 Thursdays. And as you have noticed, Adventures with Juanchoyce got back on its YouTube vlogging. And so, don't forget to tune into DP24 in Focus live edition tomorrow at 20:30 Philippines Standard Time, and DP on Reflections on Saturday at 2100 9 p.m. And also don't forget to stay tuned to DP24 Radio for the latest updates and more to your favorite podcast providers. And as always, be safe, be well, stay sane, and you are loved.